Hey, it's Andy, and I'm finally in my new place, although it's a little blank behind me. We'll get that fixed up shortly, but it's been a bit of a chaotic run for the last 3 months as I've moved 4 times, if you can believe that. But finally, I'm in my new place, and I want to give you my top 3 articles for Monday, June 7th. There are a lot of things going on in this world, but I wanted to focus a little bit on energy. There's been so many stories going around about the 3 big major oil companies getting dinged or pushed towards ESG, more towards climate change. And this is some of the things that are fascinating to me as the world of investment. Money flows into areas of opportunities, and this is something that so many people are watching. So with that in mind, just 3 quick articles that I think you could dive into. The first one comes from a June 3rd report, believe it or not, from the IEA talking about global energy investments. And again, that's that theme of investment funds flowing someplace. And so they're set to recover in 2021, overall up 10%, basically taking back all the losses from 2020 as far as investments go. It's $1.9 trillion, so it's about a 10% pop. But the interesting thing is that $820 billion of that $1.9 trillion is in power generation. And of that $820 billion, 70% of that is going into renewables, right? And so that's what's interesting to this. It's just an indication of how much money is actually flowing into these things, and whether or not it's Engine 1 getting board seats on ExxonMobil or the Biden administration make a push for climate change activities and regulations. This is emblematic of what's going on across the world and what's happening here in the United States as well. So it's an interesting article. You'll definitely want to check it out. One of the things I posted about this was just what happens if we do not get a commensurate rise in the amount of power generation that we need to get, or energy generation, as some of these bigger major oil companies are reducing down their investments. Now, I know that runs counter to what IEA is saying. I totally get that. As global energy investments have gone up overall, right? That's in 2021. That's a little bit of a reaction to what happened in 2020. But I guess I'm thinking longer term on this. So just keep that in mind as pressure comes on these oil companies to do things that they're not really good at. We wonder what happens to oil and energy investments overall. And if that starts to decline faster, then you can get the renewables up and running and demand continues to rise. This is emblematic of oil at $69 a barrel. That's my point. Okay, the next one is from EIA, which is different than IEA, believe it or not. And so one of the things that's interesting there is they talk about where they see demand for electricity, and they saw a fall in electricity demand in 2020 of 3.9%. They think it's going to increase about 2.2% in 2021. I'm just looking to see. I think that's as far as they went. Much of the increased electricity consumption across the sectors will reflect improving economic conditions in 2021. For 2022, we forecast that U.S. electricity consumption will grow by another 1%. So that's all that the growth in electricity is, that what they're saying. So let's see what happens there. There's also I know this is a press release from Invesco, so I know it's like it's just a big shout out for Invesco, but they make a really interesting point in talking about ESG is central banks are increasingly incorporating climate change and environmental, social, and governance, right, ESG, considerations across their mainstream activities, from bank supervision to monetary policy and financial stability. So that's what I thought was interesting there. Of course, this is something I've been talking about for some time and warning clients. Back in 2020, one of the consulting clients I worked with was a big energy company, and this is something that I was warning them about with the Biden administration, that you really have to prepare for this stuff now because it's coming, and it's coming across all facets of U.S. government, and this is ongoing right now. So keep that in mind. And lastly, Charlie Gasparino, who's a bit of a acerbic writer, to say the least, he writes something in the New York Post talking about BlackRock and their influence on Exxon with Engine 1 in getting those board seats. it's just interesting. The point that he makes in there is that is this, right? So I'll just read this, take it for what it's worth, but it was just kind of interesting. It says, Gasparino says, engine number one wants the company to figure out ways to reduce its carbon footprint, which again sounds good until you realize it's also a fancy way of saying it wants Exxon to do less of what it's good at. And by the way, what does engine number one know about running an oil company? And I think those are good questions to ask as we're seeing this transition and the problems with this transition. Okay, you can get all my research at andrewbush.com. You can follow me on Twitter at ABUSCH. Thanks for watching.